All right, guys, so we got some major breaking news here amidst the total and complete chaos of Trump's economic war against the entire face of the planet. So, just a couple of minutes ago, over on his Truth Social account, Trump posted this. He says, based on the lack of respect that China has shown to the world's markets, I am hereby raising the tariff charged to China by the United States of America to 125%, effective immediately. At some point, hopefully in the near future, China will realize that the days of ripping off the United States and other countries is no longer sustainable or acceptable. Now, he continues, and we'll circle back around to that, but just on this China point real quick, this is coming after, I believe, earlier today or yesterday, China hit the United States with a retaliatory 84% tariff after Trump, days before, had hit them with a further escalated tariff of 104%, right? So we're escalating significantly with China, now all the way up to 125%. China being obviously one of the largest trading partners of the United States. So any good or component part, anything that's coming from China to the United States just got 125% tariff slapped on top of it. Now, we'll circle back around to the China point here, but let's get to the second part of this Truth Social post that he put out, because this is the more interesting part, where it appears like he's kind of walking back everything that he said over the last couple of days. So he continues saying, conversely, and based on the fact that more than 75 countries have called representatives of the United States, including the Departments of Commerce, Treasury, and the USTR, to negotiate a solution to the subjects being discussed relative to trade barriers, tariffs, currency manipulation, and non-monetary tariffs, and that these countries have not, at my strong suggestion, retaliated in any way, shape, or form against the United States, I have authorized a 90-day pause and a substantially lowered reciprocal tariff during this period of 10% effective immediately. So hang on a sec, right? Just a couple days ago, we saw Donald Trump go out in front of the White House with a huge list of basically every country on the face of the planet, some tariffed to the point of like 70, 80% plus. Some were down at 30%, 20%, 50%. All over the place. By the way, as a reminder, based on a completely nonsensical formula that they came up with, which is not based on, reciprocal tariffs of charging them tariffs on, in the same way that they're charging us, right? Not based on that, but basically based on the trade deficit that we have with those countries, which again makes no sense to do it that way at all. But he does this whole stunt. And then since then, we've had Trump representatives, Trump himself, everybody under the sun who's been making conflicting statements about what the end goal is here, right? Is the end goal for this to be a long-standing policy where we keep these tariffs in place to eventually bring back American manufacturing to the U.S.? Is that the goal? Or is the goal to use this as a short-term sort of negotiating leveraged position to get other countries to lower trade barriers on the US and to get a better deal? Those two things are not compatible. But we've been seeing both claims fired off all over the place from Trump defenders, from Trump himself, from people in his cabinet. It's been utter and complete chaos, impossible to follow over the last couple of days. And now, after pulling all of that off, after saying, no, it's non-negotiable, and actually, at the same time, it is negotiable, he comes out and he does a 90-day pause. A 90-day pause. This is the same thing that multiple people have been pressuring him to do, like billionaires who are pissed off about their stock portfolios have been pushing him to do a 90-day pause to sort of stabilize the markets, right? So he does a 90-day pause. Now, at the end of the day, where does this actually get us, right? Because we're basically now just waiting 3 months to potentially get to the same point that we were yesterday, right? Where does this actually get us? It's the same chaos that we've been dealing with over the last week or so, where nobody knows what his end goal actually is, right? Nobody can predict what's going to come days or weeks or months or years in the future, which, by the way, gives you an indication that, like, the idea that this was about onshoring domestic manufacturing to the United States was pretty much bullshit from the start. Because in order to do that, you would have to do it in a targeted way where you're going after specific countries, specific industries, and tariffing them in a way that makes sense, while at the same time having a massive federal industrial policy to back it up here in the US, so that you can actually build out the capacity to manufacture whatever you're trying to manufacture. There's a way that you could do that. It would have to be stable, it would have to be a coherent plan, and it would take years and years and years to actually happen. But there's a way you could do that in a smart way. That's not what Trump has been doing, right? He levied tariffs across the board on everything, on every country. So it's like at that point, you're not even trying to bring back manufacturing because you don't have the industrial policy, right, to actually build out the capacity here in the US, and you're tariffing everything, including goods that the United States either can't or doesn't even want to produce here, right? Like, let's say we imported, just hypothetically, 90% of our coffee from Colombia, right? And let's say we don't really want to increase our coffee production here in the United States because it doesn't really make sense due to the climate or whatever other factors. Well, he just slapped a massive tariff on coffee from Colombia. So what's going to be the end result of that? If we're not increasing production of coffee here and we just slapped a massive tariff on Colombia, well, all you just did was raise the price of coffee. And you can apply that to every single good, every component part coming from all of these countries around the world. You did nothing to increase domestic manufacturing. All you did was raise prices for average working class people. It's a regressive tax on the poor disproportionately. So it's like the worst of all worlds, where you're raising prices, you're potentially spiraling us into a recession, you're sending the markets into chaos, potentially going to get people fired, wrecking havoc on people's retirement savings, and at the same time not even reaching your end goal of bringing back domestic manufacturing. So the plan from the start made no sense whatsoever. Now he's saying, okay, we're going to pause that plan. Okay, what the fuck are we doing? Now, at the same time as he's doing this pause, which again gets us absolutely nowhere to progress, he's also getting us into an escalatory trade war with China, one of our largest and most important trading partners. Now, the basics of this, unfortunately for Trump, and unfortunately for the American people, is that this is not a winnable situation. It's just not, right? China has much more of a capacity to withstand this kind of a trade war than the United States does, right? We rely on their exports much more than they rely on our exports. So again, confusing what exactly he's trying to even get out of this. So there's your update, guys. Impossible to say what's going to come tomorrow. We might get another Truth Social post tomorrow where he walks all of this back and says, nope, the tariffs are back on, or the tariffs are back on these specific countries, and everybody else gets the 10% with a 90-day pause. Completely unclear what's going to happen tomorrow or in the weeks ahead, and I think the chaos may be part of the point.
Politic guy has the best politics. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying